I'm going to say it now. A lot of people have to have accountability here. The problem with Gumayusi is this. Because of his mechanics, people are just riding the fucking high. It's a bit like Bin in that sense. People ride the peak, and they look at the peak and they go like this, Monte. But if he can keep at that level, he's as good as Ruler. But he doesn't, though. Ruler does that day in and day out, mate. Gumayusi, he always has at least one game in a big series like this where he just lets you down. He just doesn't carry the fight you want him to. He has a fuck up in lane. Something goes wrong. It was just so disappointing to me. Like, T1 just never turned up in this series. They should have been in this final, especially when Gen G got bounced. You just watched the Gen G series. Like, how are you going to learn from that and beat them? Like, you also just get fucking donked. That was just sad, mate. It's just sad.
It's just so puzzling. It's just so puzzling because the Zeus that we know that can convert leads, lane leads into game wins.
Oh, by the way, fans are going to think Bin is better than fucking Zeus now. That's the world you now live in, Monty. But welcome to hell. Same as when I was telling people for years they have to bet the news eye. What do you mean? What about their worlds? Like, that's done. That ship's sailed. It's off on that one. Sound. He beat Thorin's legendary Gragas with the blood pumping through Gragas's veins and the barrel with all the intoxicating, fucking sweet nectar of the. I can't.
The whole thing is like really wild because Zeus is just such an insanely consistent performer when it comes to domestic play. Again, outside of finals, he's just unfortunately like all of his worst performances have come on the global stage. And clearly there are some nerves issues with this T1 team. Something breaks down when they're on these big stages where they can't actually turn the potential we know they have. And this is the whole thing, guys. There is no question that in a different meta, earlier this spring, T1 was the best team in the world. That is not controversial. When they're playing the double AD carries bot lane, this team was phenomenally good. Like, the eye test on that version of the team and that meta was among, I would say, the highest performing eye tests of any team in the world in the history of League of Legends. That's how good they were. But when the meta shifted up, I think Gumayusi's inability to play Zeri at an international level did hurt this team on this patch. Like, that does make things more challenging than it needs to be. And I think that some of the underperformances of players like Faker and Zeus were really problematic. And Keria also seems to like have a mental breakdown in some of these matches from what I've seen. So they are performing under their level that we have come to expect from them. And I don't know why that is. I don't think that you need to get rid of any of the members of this team because the highs are so good. It really is a mental block. And as for T1 fans who are calling for players' heads, these are all really young players outside of Faker. Are you really just going to throw Zeus away? He's 19 years old.
He's only played a year and a half, basically, at the pro level.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember that he was basically benched.
Yeah.
He started and then was benched for Kana, and he's played exactly a year and a half as a starter. That's how much he's played. And he has had absolutely wonderful performances throughout a lot of that, but he does choke. And
by the way, guys, that would be like kicking fucking caps after his first year because he had some int games. Like, you can do it, but you look like a fool in the future.
Think about how many all-time great athletes in sports start as dirty inters. Sure. The equivalent, like quarterbacks who just throw a billion interceptions. Like Peyton Manning famously had very bad early seasons.
He set the record for rookie picks.
Yes. Yeah. He set the record for interceptions. Sometimes that's just required because people have to test their limits and learn how to play at the professional level. And we've already seen such insane greatness from Zeus that it's not really necessary. Like, there has to be another solution. Look, for all we know, he could choke until the end of time. Maybe that's just who he is. However, I find that unlikely. Because the more exposure he's going to have to all of these big matches, in theory, the less the nerfs should matter. What T1 needs to do is actually get to the root of these problems, though, because I don't think they're going to solve themselves at the end of the day. Like, this
my first look would be some sort of maybe coaching change. That's the only thing I'd consider, mate.
Yeah, performance coaches, something is happening within this team, and I think you need to really analyze what's going on in comms and what's going on in the team environment, because it feels like that's really the killer for T1.
Also, here's the other question. I always hate when people do this, Monty. You know, if you make a top 10 list and people go, what about this guy? And they never say who they're taking out. You have to do the other version of that. If you're going to tell me you're replacing Zeus, who are you replacing him with? If you say Keen, have you ever seen when Keane went international in season 8? It wasn't good. So I can't guarantee he's going to carry a world final. Mega player, mega talented.
I would trade.
Who are we going for?
Who are we for Keane? I would get some Keen on the Gen G if I could.
I mean, here's another one. Same for ADC, right? Who are we getting at ADC? Deft? Deft isn't that sick domestically. He's just like, he's still a top player. He's not like a one-man carry, by the way. Debatable. It's maybe slightly better because of experience. By the way, no one knows how many more years he has. If not Deft, who else are we getting? Remember, Ruler's off in China. Like, Viper. You're going to say Viper, right? If you bring in Viper, I don't even know if you play the T1 style. Maybe if you bring Viper and you have to put all the eggs in the Viper, but maybe it has to be an Uzi. I think. Who the fuck knows? There's always behind the scenes stuff that makes these more complicated. The thing is, Korea isn't like LEC and LCS where you can just chop and change, make super teams. Like, usually super teams only happen when everything aligns. Like someone's contract ended with this org, or they win the LPL, so it's okay for them to join the rival org now. You don't in Korea just hop from one team to the other that much. Like, if you're wondering, how did Deft go to Damwon? Because DRX was, the joke was, that was, if anything, his down year he had to play on DRX. Like, that wasn't a top org, and we all knew they were losing the team anyway at the end. So I think people are also misunderstanding. It's not that easy to just get better players than Gumayusi and Zeus. They have flaws, but who are we getting that's better? Especially the idea that they have to be guaranteed better. Because as you said, Monty, the youth element, if you are T1, you are absolutely thinking this way. Every year, Faker might retire. And if Faker retires, I don't want to have to build like 2 or 3 new carry positions. Yeah. I want those set, and then I'm just going to bring in the next stud mid laner. And that's the dream for them, is just slot Faker out one day and put in like a Chovy, or the next Chovy, as it were.
Yeah, or, I mean, alternatively, you don't, because of the role that Faker plays within the team, you don't necessarily have to have the stud mid laner. You can actually have a rookie mid laner, potentially, if the other players are confident in carrying. That's the whole purpose of this team and the way that it is built. It isn't built around Faker carrying. That's not the purpose of what the roster does. Faker is an enabler for the side lanes. And so the problem is that when you hit the international stage and apparently Zeus is no longer capable of carrying, and you forget that your entire style has been based around getting bot lane ahead in a get the bot lane ahead meta. Like, it's just the decisions that were made were just so deeply confusing. It's the same shit with Gen G. They fought fights they would never fight in LCK ever. Like, why are you opting into these engages? You don't have to do it. Your whole identity is making the smarter macro decision, but you're getting sucked into these fights for no reason. And you are also throwing your leads. And the exact same thing that I talked about on the Wukong from Gen G from Peanut happened in the 4th game versus BLG. It was another really bad Wukong engage, this time from Owner, and they threw the game. And there's, for whatever reason, when there is a winnable game state for T1 or Gen G in these 2 series versus BLG, they feel like they have to overextend. They feel like they have to push this advantage. And what happened is Owner did a useless turret dive on the Wukong, ended up feeding the Zeri, and they just push and win the game. Right? Like, it's not really excusable. These things just shouldn't be happening. But the team fighting is better. And look, I'm not saying that this was like a throw from the Korean teams. I mean, it was to a certain degree, but also just this goes to highlight the superior team fighting that we see from a lot of the Chinese teams. Like, they just have a better idea about when to fight and when to press their advantages.
Here's the one reason I'm happy that T1 lose. I'm not, by the way, for the rest of the team. Zeus is now going to be treated like a fucking bum, like he never did any of that domestically. Meanwhile, Bin gets the opposite. He gets to be a god because he did it internationally. Then Gumayusi is going to forever be in the shadow of A, his big brother, and B, all the other people like Ruler, like Viper, like the stud ADCs. Obviously, Carrier, if the rest of the team goes to shit, can't carry the game. He's the fucking support player. And Owner, quite frankly, isn't even the worst one in all these tournaments. He tends on like one bad pick pick or one bad game, but he just gets left to shit. And then Faker gets hyped by the casters and never can carry the series. So everyone wants T1 to fail, seemingly. I don't. I think it'd be so many sick storylines if they finally won Worlds or something. I think it'd be so sick for Korea. There's so many cool angles to it. The fact that Faker changed his style and his career, everything. But the one thing that reminds me when I start to get sad about what happened to T1 is I see Joe Marsh's face and I go, you're the Reggie of LCK, because you took over domestically. You've had all those championships. You've never won a single fucking banana cup internationally, mate. You've won nout. You've won absolutely sweet fuck all while bragging to the West and sort of trying to like be like the Pater of like Jack and fucking Steve. Like, now, guys, Carlos, listen up, mate. You've only won MSI. Like, here's what I would do as like the, you know, the T1. I like invented Boxer and T1 basically. So this is how you win international. Like, you've never done anything. By the way, there's already why Reggie should watch what he fucking wishes for, because this guy bought the greatest org ever in Korea that ever wants to play for, and he can't win Worlds, mate. You're going to rock up to LPL, partner with like fucking that like Ultimate Prime or whatever, and try and win Worlds. I don't think so. But anyway, just seeing Joe Marsh's smug face just do that moment from that old school Simpsons episode where like Lisa didn't like take the Valentine from Ralph, whatever his name is, and it's like, and Bart gets that video like, look, I've paused it. This is the frame. You can see where his heart breaks. Like, it's like seeing that every time. And even LS, who can't help like a moth to a flame, but buy into the Joe Marsh hype. Because I don't know, he gave him a fucking shoulder pat and was like, wipe your tears. They're just saying mean words on Discord one time. Here's money, take money, Dad, fix it, money. So when he does that, I just love that he rocks up. He's always there. It's like, I'm ready for the championship, boys. Because he's wanting that moment, mate, where when they win, he's going to run out with Faker and be like, with the trophy. He's never had it. And just seeing that moment where his face just drops, like, what have I done? And even better, knowing that because he's a foreigner, all those Koreans, even the ones that fuck with him, English, the ones that say they like him and support him, and they send him an English message like, go, Joe, T1 win. It's knowing that they're all just at home like, Silva, Joe Marsh, Silva, I fucking look, I love it. It's delicious Schadenfreude. Please. No, it's like foie gras. I shouldn't have more. The way it's made is wrong, but it's too delicious.
I think Joe. I've said this before. I think Joe Marsh's heart is in the right place. I just think he's very annoying.
I've said it a million times. Joe Marsh. You know what? I hope someone fucking drains the swamp there in the LCK. There you go. Whatever. That's the joke. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.